Donald Trump is leaving the G7 summit early, and earlier today he warned residents in Tehran to evacuate immediately. He wrote, "Iran should have signed the deal. I told them to sign. What a shame and a waste of human life." Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Can I get your reaction to this development, and is it an indication that the US will get directly involved?
Gabriella, it's great to be with you. You're correct that conditions are changing very quickly on the ground in the Middle East. But while the hostilities between Israel and Iran may seem like a new conflict to many, it's actually not new at all. President Donald Trump has been, from my perspective, remarkably consistent in declaring that he would be willing to strike the Islamic Republic's nuclear facilities if it becomes necessary to prevent Tehran from acquiring nuclear weapons. But he's also said on numerous occasions that he would prefer to strike a deal that results in the complete and verifiable dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program. I would simply, in response to your question, offer these observations. Number one, President Trump can put America first without abandoning America's global security interests. And number two, the thing that every good Iran policy scholar understands is that the Ayatollahs respond to a firm hand. But I also know that Iran fears internal dissent more than it does external pressure. And I have long observed in my scholarly work that Tehran fears domestic protest will metastasize to bring about regime change from within. So when it comes to the ongoing campaign initiated by Israel, let's be clear. Israel has undertaken some very difficult work, and they're to be credited for their bold and decisive action. And the White House is to be credited for their support of Israel in these early days. Israel has opened the skies. They've eliminated several of the regime's most belligerent actors, and they've accomplished what many thought was impossible by taking out high-ranking officials in the IRGC and the Ministry of Intelligence and Security and nuclear scientists in just 72 hours. They're very well positioned from my perspective to decapitate the regime and cripple its nuclear program. And to be clear, U.S. assistance would clearly accelerate these efforts. But there are numerous ways that the United States can support Israeli operations short of kinetic participation in ongoing hostilities. The United States can share intelligence. The United States can coordinate arms and munitions transfers. The United States can express solidarity with the Iranian people by recognizing their right to resist this brutal regime, including strongly supporting the regime's pro-democracy opposition. And these are things that I expect we will begin to see from the United States as fighting intensifies in the coming weeks.
Okay, well, Donald Trump spoke about the situation in the Middle East early today. Let's just listen to what he said.
Israel is doing very well, as you probably noticed, and I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no, and the 61st you saw what happened, day 61, so I'm in constant touch, and as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed, and I think Iran is foolish not to sign one.
As you say, the president has been pretty consistent in his messaging. He does have the issue back home, though, as many Americans do not want to see America get directly involved. However, others would support him doing so, as it's, of course, defending the West. But let's talk about the conflict between Israel and Iran. Israel has delivered a decisive blow to Iran's nuclear weapons program. But how much longer does it need to really make significant, meaningful damage to Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities?
Well, Gabriella, even setting aside the current existential crisis facing the regime, the convergence of internal weakness, the regime's kind of economic decline, the unprecedented public rejection of the regime, which is clearly observable in countrywide uprisings that have occurred in recent years. All of these things demonstrate that the radical regime in Tehran is at an inflection point. And the question now is not, will the regime fall? The question now is, when will the regime collapse? The chants on the Iranian street that reject both the Shah and the supreme leader clearly signal that this restive population is simply no longer willing to live under authoritarianism in any form. And now, Gabriella, we're hearing reports that Iranian officials are fleeing the country on private aircrafts, private jets. You know, perhaps the mullahs are looking for a safe haven in Russia or another rogue state. It's very clear to me and many Iran policy analysts in the United States that this regime is on its heels. But you know, while the focus over the past several days has been on the vulnerabilities of the Iranian regime, and rightly so, and the loss of IRGC commanders and control centers, it's really important that we not lose sight of the most critical issue that could lead to change in Iran, and that is the democratic aspirations of the Iranian people. You know, we've exposed the nature of this regime. It has been exposed. We know all too well their terror plots and the nuclear deception and the brutal crackdowns. But now we need to turn our attention to focusing on a solution. You know, neither Israel nor the United States wishes to occupy or govern Iran. And toppling the regime and rebuilding a democratic state that's at peace with the world is ultimately a project for the Iranian people. The regime has effectively blackmailed the international community through its nuclear brinksmanship and proxy violence for far too long. And for far too long, the West has bought into this false dichotomy of war on the one hand and appeasement on the other. And this has allowed Tehran to manipulate diplomacy while crushing its own people. And the international reluctance to back an indigenous alternative has only prolonged this cycle. So when you pose this important question, you know, how much longer, how long will this take? The question really becomes, how quickly can we mobilize the Iranian people to take back their country? And as I said, I believe they're prepared to take to the streets, and I believe they are well situated to push for regime change from within.
What kind of Iran do you see emerging, and how would that reshape the region?
Well, the type of Iran that I see emerging is as a democratic state. You know, I think when we look towards the future, we know we need only understand the Iranian opposition. The Iranian opposition is I'll speak plainly about the NCRI, the best constituted opposition in Iran. The NCRI is a broad-based coalition that was formed in 1981. It serves today as its government in exile. The MEK is its leading organization with a vast domestic network inside the country. Their longstanding commitment is to secularism and democracy and gender equality and a non-nuclear Iran. And this makes them, from my perspective and many in the United States, the only serious alternative to the current ruling regime. They are very active inside Iran in terms of mobilizing the population and confronting the IRGC and breaking down the wall of fear and organizing for the next anti-regime uprising. They serve as a decentralized but highly coordinated movement that is really capable of shaking the regime's foundations. You know, I think what makes them particularly frightening to the regime in Tehran is that they have a 10-point plan. a 10-point plan that has been remarkably consistent for some time. A 10-point plan that, as I said, puts an emphasis on a country that ultimately upholds human rights and is at peace with regional powers and is at peace with the West. And so when I look towards the future and I think about what this country can become, I look at not just the voice, the democratic aspirations of the Iranian people, but the principles embodied by the Iranian resistance, and in particular, the National Council of Resistance of Iran.
Ivan Sascha Sheehan, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Really appreciate your insights and analysis.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Gabriella.